Hi, everyone. I think we have just a few more people coming in from the waiting room. Let's see. All right, I think I got everyone. Good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Laura Rosenbaum. I'm the nonprofit programs manager at the Catalog for Philanthropy. And I'm excited to have Peter and Roddy with us here today from Game Genius, who are going to present about staff and self-engagement. So with that, I'll let them take it from here.
Perfect. Thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Wednesday morning. My name is Peter Williamson. This is my partner. I don't know where. I think he's left, maybe right on your screen. Roddy McKenzie. If you want to
everybody.
We're really excited. This is the second of 4 workshops that we're doing kind of alongside the catalog, and today's all about staff and self-engagement. So imagine probably a hot topic as we're over a year into the pandemic and kind of most of us working from home and doing kind of remote work. So thinking about creative ways to engage the team and just think through some maybe newer ways to address this kind of new virtual hybrid workforce that might be coming in the next year. So really thinking critically about how you can have fun with your team and grow together. So I'm going to be sharing a deck. We're going to try to make this interactive today, and so we'll do some exercises to kind of keep people in the forefront of this conversation. I want this to be as helpful as possible. So if you have any questions along the way, please type them in the chat. We'll try to prompt some of those things through some of the activities. So with that, I am going to share my screen. And just give me a thumbs up, people who are on video or have the button, if you can see this. I see thumbs up, so I think I've got it. Okay, awesome. And we've hit the moment in the day where my 1-year-old kitten is awake and terrorizing my computer. So if you start seeing me like wobbling around, it's probably my cat. So staff and self-engagement is what we're talking about. I want to start with a game. So I don't know when's the last time you've done a maze, but on the screen is a maze. And you want to start on the left arrow, finish on the right arrow, and see if you can figure out what the message spells as you draw a line through this maze. So you should hit a couple words, and those words will prompt you to do something. And I'd like you to type the answer in the chat. So I'll give you a minute or two. All right, I'm seeing some answers in the chat. If you got what it says, type an answer to that phrase. I love it. Yes, yes, yes. All right, I'm starting to see a lot coming in here. Yes, some people answering that question. Would love you to type what you found. So kind of think about what that phrase is telling you. Yes, I'm seeing some good answers in here. Yeah, I like it. This is good. So for those of you who are kind of still working their way through the maze, we'll help a little bit. It's actually a symmetrical maze, so it's the same kind of forward and backwards. It's just kind of it's almost like a book. So if you do the same thing going through the front part of the maze as the back part of the maze, you'll get through. It says share a 2021 goal. I'm seeing engaging clients and donors, or re-engaging them. I'm seeing better work-life balance. I'm seeing submitting more grant proposals, sharing your fun. I think having more fun, yes, I think there's a really good theme here. I always like thinking about goals, connecting with more people, create positive changes in work life and community. I love that. These are all good. Maintain work-life balance. I like thinking about goals in the context of creating a game. So a lot of our work, as I'll flip through here, thank you for sharing some answers. Our work at Game Genius, for those of you who aren't familiar with us, is we're a 501c3 pending. It's exciting. We just submitted to be a nonprofit, much like a lot of you, that provides play-based services, experiences to support the leaders, organizations, and socially beneficial initiatives in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And so essentially, we like to try to use play and make it more, make social good more impactful, more fun, more engaging for everyone involved. And we're really excited. We just got fiscally sponsored by the Ocean Foundation. So we're really thankful to have someone helping us as we're waiting for our 501c3 status. Today, we're going to go through a couple different ways to think about staff and self-engagement. I'm sure a lot of you are probably thinking more in the experiences side. So what can I do to create a space or an opportunity for my staff to get involved, or to get myself more excited about a certain task at work? A lot of the time, you're sort of using some kind of experience to build those relationships and moments. But we're going to talk about a couple other ways that you can do that too, which include sort of the service side of our work, which is working with nonprofits to help teams build those communication skills that can really make the workplace more fun, and it will catalyze a lot more ideas internally, as well as products and kind of building your own games around your social mission and using that as a tool to help your team re-engage with the work that you do, but also thinking critically about how those games can face a lot of your other constituents and stakeholders and board and anyone in your network, and can help your team be better advocates for what you do. Seeing some familiar faces in the room, so I know we've had a couple of these conversations one-on-one, but we're always open to have these conversations and how to either build fun experiences that can help you, just empower you to run this on your own. Our goal is to kind of make ourselves obsolete, if you will. So we'll go through a couple of these case studies. This is an exercise just to read the room. I know we're midweek, it's Wednesday. People are kind of at different points of their week, different points of the month, could be tired, could be energized. What I want people to do, if you're familiar with the annotate feature in Zoom, I want you to make a mark on each one of these kind of spectrums. So somewhere along this line, where are you feeling? And for those of you who don't know how to use annotate, there should be a menu at the top of your screen that says view options, or you are viewing Peter Williamson's screen, and an option that says annotate. It will have a little pen icon on it. If you are on a phone or an iPad or a mobile device, it will probably be a pen icon in the bottom left of your screen. And would just love you to make a mark on the spectrum, just to kind of see how people are feeling. I love everyone's choosing stars. I love it. Got the stamp feature going. This is good. I like this. I like the star off the grid. I'm thinking that's a learn by doing. This is great. I'm liking the marks. Fantastic. Still seeing a few marks come in. So hopefully, as you're seeing this seeing these things come through, you're starting to recognize that while there might be some concentration or some sections in these spectrums that are more concentrated than others, there are ranges. There are people on every side, maybe except for learn by watching. There are people on every side of these spectra. So recognizing that people learn differently, people want to play differently, people are at different parts of the day and of their energy, and thinking about detail versus big picture oriented, or wanting to be collaborative, wanting to compete. Those are very, very different mindsets of people coming in. And so just make sure that you are opening up spaces that allow people to thrive. And so we love to do an exercise like this consistently within our teams and within meetings that we have with teams, just to see who's in the room, how people are feeling, and how we can set up a session that is more dynamic and less kind of pinned to a particular agenda just because we want to follow it. And so from this, I would learn a lot about, all right, we need to do some things together with this group, because I think watching another kind of death by PowerPoint is probably not the way that this group's going to learn best. And so trying to make things interactive is a goal. I think this is a heavily collaborative group. And so thinking about how these groups, or how we can kind of play together, but solve a problem together, or work together to achieve a common goal. And then really thinking about how we learn best in that sort of detail versus big picture oriented. This is the one that usually gets the biggest discrepancy across, and it's pretty well balanced, I would say. And so thinking about how different people on your team contribute to solving a problem, or playing a game, or doing any kind of work, and how those things can fit into the work you do, and how you can set things up for success. So we really like to kind of take the climate, or read the room. We think it's really critical for playing a good game. So thank you for that. I'm going to clear these drawings, and I'll move on. So one of the big things that we found, especially in this sort of virtual pandemic time, is this concept of psychological safety. If people feel like they can bring their full self to a game or an activity or work, they are much more likely to buy into an activity. This is sort of the comedic relief of, I saw someone's phone the other day that had 133,000 messages on it, and emails, and I'm sure that resonates with some of you, of being just totally overwhelmed by messages and things to do. Mental health is a big issue. I think especially in the nonprofit sector, there's just so much to do. There's so many fires to put out, and I think prioritizing a moment where you can step back, breathe, play a little bit, can really help open up some of those creative avenues that we see teams thrive with. The problem is that making that intentional space is really hard, and getting everyone at the same time to align is even harder. And so making sure that when you bring people into a room, that they feel like they can participate at their fullest capacity. I know it's really easy to kind of tune out to like your 14th Zoom meeting of the day. And so for us, it's making sure that we're setting ourselves up for success, and not just sort of putting another thing on people's calendars. So that is one big piece about games, is that if everyone is ready to play, you'll have a much more successful event. The other kind of thing that we want to build a kind of a definition for two types of ways that you can engage your team. There are activities that we would consider to be team bonding. So think of that as activities that are more fun. You go off and you do a ropes course, or you have a social happy hour, or you just do things that are fun, lighthearted, just get to know people, kind of build relationships, versus the team building side, which is much more takeaway learning, game learning, significant. So think of those things as, you're playing a game for a specific professional development purpose. And I think delineating the two things is really important when you come to the table saying we want to play games together, because the conversations should be fairly different in how you approach these things, right? Team bonding is very much it's a little bit more voluntary. People who want to participate can. The team building side, you really want to try to make that as inclusive as possible, because if people get left behind in a team build, it really might leave some feeling like they're not as included in the team. And so just thinking again, how can we set up an exercise that helps people? And we'll give a couple examples of both here in a second. And Roddy is my partner, will drop a link. We've been working with some organizational consultants in the area over the last about year and a half to design a game up, and it's turned into sort of its own venture. It's called Barometer XP. We are facilitating nonprofit sessions as we work up this product, but essentially what it is it's a bunch of simulation challenges, so something more team building, where teams can play together to solve a challenge, much like you would do maybe an escape room or some kind of collaborative puzzle. And our goal is to try to identify the sort of who, what, when, where, why, how of the ways that teams work, and trying to make sure that there are systems in places, there are communication structures that are strong, the kind of leadership model of the organization is understood, the advocacy of how you can go out into the community is clear. These games are meant to be safe spaces to try, to fail, to work through problems together, and hopefully have a collective experience that you can bring into your real life application, and make it more fun and engaging. These are supposed to be examples. And so if anybody would like to engage with us, we're doing some beta testing kind of in early summertime. We're working with an organization to help us build up an app that can be facilitated both in person, but also digitally. So we're setting ourselves up for a kind of hybrid work environment. And feel free to email us at info@gamegenius.org. Or if you have Roddy or my personal emails, feel free to send that as well. But this is an opportunity for any nonprofit in the area to engage. We love testing new tools and seeing how they can work for you. Here's a couple images of games that we're playing. A lot of it is kind of puzzle oriented, communication based. Some of it's drawing and Pictionary like. Some of it's thinking about mitigating risk. A lot of different factors that pop up in the workplace, and we're just trying to simulate them as best as possible. Next game, we're in the learn by doing. So I'm looking at how many people we have in the room. We've got about 20 or so. So what I want to do is kind of a fun, it's kind of a fun challenge. We might do breakout rooms if we can, Laura. But what I want to do is I want to break us into 2 equal breakout rooms. So there'll be a team A and a team B. So we're going to try to make this collaborative within your teams, but competitive, because team A and team B will be competing against each other. But hopefully everyone understands the rules of soccer. If you don't, it's played on a pitch. There are 2 goals. There's a ball. There are 11 people on the field for each team, and they try to score in their opposing goal and not get scored on. High score wins. And so this game is very, very simple. It's a simplified version of soccer. Your goal in your groups, when we divide you into groups, is to determine where on the field you want to position your team. So there will be 1 person on each team that will be on this field, and you're to decide where on this field you're going to put yourself. And to help you with that, we're going to give you 2 questions that you can ask me. I'll jump into the breakout rooms. You can ask me 2 clarifying questions about the scenario. So obviously you don't see a few critical things like people and potentially a ball. So you can ask me questions, 2 questions per team. And when we'll come back, I'm going to ask someone from each group to identify where you're going to place yourself on the screen. So I'm going to stop my share because I think everyone can remember what a soccer field looks like. I am looking to Laura. I've got breakout rooms set up. Is it okay if I send people into breakout rooms?
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. I just want to get thumbs up if people understand what they're doing. You have 2 questions, and you have to identify a place on the soccer field that you're going to put your team. Your goal is obviously to win the soccer match. All right, I see some thumbs up. I see some confused faces. That's great. Those are wonderful when we get games. I'm going to create, the game is played just like standard soccer. It's an excellent question. I'll answer that for everyone. Yes, it is played just like standard soccer, only there's 1 person on the field for each team instead of 11. So you'll have to think about offense and defense accordingly. All right, so I'm going to create 2 random breakout rooms. I see random breakout rooms. Yes, they're ready. I'm going to open the rooms. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to deliberate within your teams and choose a couple questions to ask, and I'll pop in. All right. Go team. Names here. Yes. Yes. Okay. Awesome. So hopefully an interesting conversation. This strategy is kind of the main point of this game. I'm going to share my screen again. So we're going to get back to the soccer field. So for group 1, which I believe had Latoya, I think, was in it. Is Latoya still here? Just trying to pull on whoever was in Latoya's group. Do you have a place on the field that you would like to put yourself?
I wanted to make sure it wasn't felt like I was dominating a group at all. Well, you told us that, and can I say what you told us?
You can. That might help the other group though.
Oh yes, this is true. So
we might quickly change our minds.
So I'm trying to remember. Oh goodness, it's early. So I think place us in front of the right goal.
Kind of here-ish with this pink X.
And
maybe
maybe
just do that wrong side. You want to be on the right goal or left goal?
Exactly. Like if I'm looking at the screen, my right hand, I'm assuming is the right goal, and my left hand, I'm assuming is the left goal. And so yes, in front of the right goal.
In front of the right goal. Okay.
Yes.
So we'll be over here.
Based on what we know.
Excellent. Other group, where would you like to put yourself?
So we wanted to be in front of one of the goals too, but we didn't get so far as to figure out which one. So I'm going to defer to my teammates on that one.
Seems like they might know something we don't know. Maybe we should go where they are.
You know where the ball is, though.
That's a good point. Maybe we should go there. What do you think, team?
Go where the ball is?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Sure. We're going where the ball is.
It was a nudge to go to the ball. So the ball for the other group is in the exact middle of the field. So we'll put the other team there. And I know this is kind of a silly exercise, but at the heart of this is getting people to, one, communicate some strategies, how they might think. There's some risk management here. For those of you who have played soccer, obviously, if you put yourself behind the person with the ball and they're running toward your goal, it's going to be very hard to stop them from scoring. And so I think this is a relatively well-balanced game. The sort of yellow X, the second group, would have the ball, and the pink X would be kind of defending their own goal. The yellow team is going to the right, the pink team is going to the left. And so here you've created a pretty fair matchup. But there have been scenarios where if we put more X's on the field, trying to coordinate where everyone is, if we had everyone put X's at the same time, to see how groups could coordinate. It's kind of a fun exercise to see, like, where do you intuitively want to be in this circumstance? Do you want to be protecting the goal and trying to make sure that you don't get scored on, or do you want to put yourself on sort of the opposite side of the field so that you can score a goal for your team? The mindset of how you might play a game like this, as silly as this is, can be really interesting to debrief. So this is kind of a really high level example of how you might be able to take a simple exercise and make it into kind of a fun, icebreaker of sorts. So I'm going to clear the screen, and I'll move on. I'm actually going to bring in my partner here, Roddy, to talk a little bit about a game called Bankable. This is an example of a game that we created for a firm in Bethesda. And for us, we love to help teams create products, and I'll let Roddy share a little bit more about this experience.
Yeah, this product is unique to me because this is how I met Peter. This is how I joined the team. So I used to work at a private fund based up in Bethesda, Maryland. They invest in SME and microfinance institutions in developing and emerging markets. And just creating this game as a way to build empathy for end borrowers, as a way to explain our investment process, but then also internally to get the whole team together to build this game product. It allowed us to understand our blind spots when we're talking to investors. It allowed the team to come together and realize some of the issues in our niche space. And so just being able to create a game that we can play internally, that we were able to then showcase to investors as a way to tell our process. That's what brought me on to Game Genius. And so it's these type of projects that we like to do with organizations. And so it's a relic that the organization keep themselves, and it's also just a fun team building and internal exercise.
Perfect. Thanks, Roddy. Yeah, these are really fun ways to engage kind of everyone in the process, from people on the team, but it also gets to be mission specific. So you can really help think about, as Roddy said, how are you going to face either investors or donors or people in the community to share, what's the importance of loans and how can that help? And so just building the dynamics of how players play will surface a lot of questions that people might not be willing to ask without something like a game as a medium, because it is a safer space to ask questions that they might feel silly about asking. So we talk a little bit about, we're kind of in the middle of an event this week. This is our celebration of play called Play Week. It runs the entire week. We've been doing a lot of different sessions and talking about game design and how just the process of game design is very much like design thinking or human-centered design. And just, again, really making sure that you have a process for doing these things. And so we like to create resources around what it takes to build a game that's successful and try to help support along that journey. There are a bunch of different barriers that we found when people try to create engaging experiences or products or activities for their team to do. And it's usually between these three steps. So just really briefly, I think a lot of these are kind of intuitive, but ideation is all about where an idea comes from. Having the space and the time to think about that is precious, but it also can come from just spontaneous moments. You might be watching a movie and be like, wow, that would be an amazing concept for us to do a game day around this, baking competition for our team, or something like that, where you're building on a fun idea that you found inspirational. But where the barrier lies is trying to convert that into a prototype or an experience that people can test and try and see if you can put it into that first model. There's a huge barrier there because not a lot of people know what's out there in terms of tools to help them facilitate that experience, whether it's physical or digital. And then as you sort of enter into that first prototype, how do you know when it's ready for it to be rolled out to actually play in the team? or play within your community. And so that we call the design loop. And it's a lot of prototyping and iterating and making sure that there's a good feedback loop from the right people that represent your intended audience. And so you really have to start thinking about, who is this for? Why are we doing this? How are we going to leverage the strengths of the design team to make sure that the energy of this event comes through and we can set up a safe space? And so that design loop can feel endless, but at some point, there needs to be a moment where it moves into that production phase. And whether that's building a physical game like the bankable game Roddy was sharing, or an event that you're planning up, or something internal, just like an activity. Production is all about logistics. And so if you can work yourself backward from the timeline that needs to be put out, I don't think this is anything new or rocket science, but really having a good structure to walk you through these steps is critical. And that second barrier between the final prototype and production is oftentimes just knowing what resources are out there. And so Game Genius would love to help in any of these three categories. If anybody ever has an idea or they have a fully fleshed out model that they want to build into an event or activity or product, we're more than happy to help however we can. Finally, kind of last case study, this is the one that I kind of mentioned at the beginning, is most common when thinking about staff and self-engagement is to build experiences. So Roddy and I are both big fans of escape rooms. He's been designing up a couple virtual models. This is the first in the series this year. We're focused our impact theme. We have an impact theme every year to show that kind of a deeper dive in how games might be able to impact that space. This year it's climate and environment. So we're telling a handful of stories through escape rooms that people can kind of point and click and solve puzzles. We're releasing our second one later this week. And we're really excited to show people how there are a lot of accessible tools out there that you can plug into. It doesn't take a ton of time to set up and can create a really cool, fun experience for your team. I think the more people you involve in the process, the better a lot of these events end up becoming, because people feel like there's that buy-in, there's the authorship, but also making sure that it's representing the folks on the team. I've seen a lot of events that are very well intended, not do as well as planned, just because either one or two people kind of take over the event and they cater it to their own preferences, which is perfectly fine and good if people are willing to buy into that. But oftentimes it's a lot easier when everyone has a stake in it. So this is a picture from one of the escape rooms that we've built. We both have kind of an architecture model experience, so we use a program that's called SketchUp. It's a little bit more digitally intensive, but there are a lot of tools out there that can help you with this experience and building things up like this. So I'll get to kind of this next challenge. This is more of a guess. There's a game online called GeoGuessr. I was a geography major in school, and I've always really liked this as kind of an awareness building exercise and really reading the room to make sure that you're building an experience that's right for people. But what I want people to do is take a look at this picture and try to guess where it is in the world. You've got a handful of clues on the screen that you might be able to pull from, and would love to just kind of hear people's thought processes and guesses. So I'm going to look through the chat to see if anybody can get close. We'll make this a competition for anyone who wants to guess where in the world is this location. Seeing a theme in the chat. Give it another minute. Mhm. All right, I see some guesses, maybe some people holding in other ideas. So some of the clues, if you want to just come off of mute real quick and just share, what are some clues that you've pulled from to give your guesses? I see a European theme, at least in the first couple. Anyone want to share what their thought process was?
Meters, not yards or feet.
Meters, not yards on the sign. Yep. I didn't Photoshop that in.
The license plate shape that's blurred out.
Yep. Super interesting.
Playing cards. I thought it was in maybe Las Vegas. Is you playing the cards?
Sorry, say that again.
You were playing cards, look like, in your hand.
The cards in my hand.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the wrong thing. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. No worries. No,
Okay.
picture, I think it's still shared, at least on my screen. But there should be a couple cars coming down a road.
I think the car is a Renault, which would be French.
It is a Renault, and Renaults are French. That's excellent. I think Renaults are around Europe, but it is an excellent context clue, and that is one of the key things for people who are, in geography, sort of the temperate gray weather skies. It's stereotypical, but the sort of flatland is very very common in sort of the European areas, certain European areas, and in this case, the answer is northern France, and so it's just west of Paris. But this is a game called GeoGuessr. It's online. It's actually fairly old, but it's one of my favorites because it gets people thinking about, it's competitive, but it also gets you thinking about context clues and how maybe to read the room. This is more of a situational awareness, but thinking about how that applies to team members and making sure that everyone feels like they're a part of something. So thanks for your guesses, and excellent work to the people who guessed France, and I think anything near France. So then we want to share some other platforms that we really liked. I think there are some people on the call that have used platforms like Kahoot, which is a trivia platform. I know trivia is probably one of the easiest things to conceptualize in a virtual environment. But we really like Jackbox Games, is an interesting tool to engage staff. It's a really fun platform that you can sign up for and have a collaborative experience with a lot of fun, silly games, more team bonding. And then something that's newer on the left, it's called gather.town. And I think there's some real merit to what a virtual office environment looks like going forward. And what Gather essentially does is it puts you in this virtual kind of like 8-bit environment. So if you've ever played like Pokemon or Final Fantasy or something kind of like Game Boy-ish, you walk around the screen, you have a little icon, and depending on how close your icon is to another person's icon, your video and audio show up or not. And so it's starting to simulate what an office environment might look like, but more in a virtual setting. And it has a ton of implications for just different ways to set up office culture, but also to think about how can you set up a game day and make it so that instead of us having to facilitate breakout rooms and making sure that the host is really the main driver of all of those decisions, you give autonomy to everyone in the room to walk around wherever they want, explore the space. And so for our 2 events later this week on Friday and Saturday of Play Week, and Roddy can share the Eventbrite links in the chat, we're going to be exploring this tool of Gather. And hopefully people can join us if you're curious about it. It's a pretty simple platform. And we're really excited to kind of share it around with people. It's not ours. It's an open platform. It has a lot of different functionality, but we like sharing tools that we found to be really successful. So That's Friday and Saturday of this week. It's sort of our trivia night and escape room that we'll be playing within Gather, and people can join and explore and do really whatever they want in the space with us that day. Finally, just kind of rolling through some other things, some other inspirations that we found really interesting. I had mentioned kind of a baking contest. I've seen some really fun events where people either are trying to create something they've seen on TV or online. It might be a food item, it might be a drink, it might be a craft, but they put something up and they say make this, and there are not a lot of instructions, but here's a set of tools or ingredients that you have to use. And then you take pictures at the end, and it's kind of this fun, lighthearted. There's a show on Netflix called Nailed It. If you've ever watched it, it's very funny, about kind of amateur bakers trying to bake a professional looking cake. The middle is all about creating some kind of competition or voting challenge. So I've seen March Madness be a big inspiration for a lot of people and thinking about how to vote in a finalist or winner. This year I tuned into something called Mammal Madness, which is all about voting in animals and how they would do in different ecosystems. It was fun for a lot of the environmental groups to tune in and talk about kind of what they mean to the ecosystem. And so you can make these as relevant or non-relevant as you want them to be to your mission, but make sure that what you're creating is fun, you're enjoying it, because that energy, if nothing else, is I think the most important part. The right is a slide from something called PowerPoint karaoke. So if anybody's ever done that, it's basically someone will set up a set of slides that usually make no sense. It's, you know, non-contextualized graphics or statistics or graphs, and people just have to present kind of improv for 60 seconds about what they're seeing. And it creates a lot of laughs, creates a lot of funny shared stories. And it's something that I've seen be really successful if people are willing to be vulnerable for 60 seconds. The last question I'll ask is just to do kind of a pool of people in the room. What have been one of your favorite team activities this year? I know nonprofits have all sorts of ideas. They've instituted them. Some have worked not as well. But knowing what other teams have done can give you some inspiration as well. So it's not just kind of our knowledge, but the collective knowledge of the group. So would love in the chat, just share one of your favorite team activities that you've done during the pandemic so that other people can see and glean some inspiration. Yes. Codenames is a favorite. That's a great game. It's a kind of word recognition game, but it's there are a bunch of online platforms as well that allow you to play it. Show and tell, I love that. Trivia, yes. Kahoot, I see Kahoot and Codenames again. I see trivia competitions, yeah. Virtual karaoke, yep. I'm thinking that's the singing version of karaoke, which over Zoom could be very funny. These are great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I have seen a lot of successful kind of trivia. I think that format works really well virtually. But as people are thinking about you know, new and different, just keeping things fresh, you know, how can you put a spin on some of those trivia games? It's always great to come back to the wheel, things that you know work well. But if you're looking to explore with the group, there are a lot of options out there. I see Jeopardy. Jeopardy's good. Yeah, there's some really cool tools out there that allow you to create kind of an interactive Jeopardy board on a PowerPoint if you type it into Google. So that's good too. Awesome. That's all for my presentation. Hopefully interactive, fun. Would love to take any Q&A. I've got about 10 minutes. Just as a reminder, the next one is in May. The next workshop here is about board engagement. So a lot of similar themes that we talked about today. but really with an intentionality on how to engage your board. I think it's an incredibly important thing to do, especially for nonprofits, to try to get as many people involved as possible that are passionate about what you're working on. And the games can really help with that. So that will be on May 26th at Laura, you might have to correct me on this. Is it 11:30 for that one? I think it's 11:30, but there'll be emails going out about it. And then we have office hours to meet one-on-one with people every Wednesday from 11 to 1. We're always game to meet outside that block too, but we've got some time set aside that we dedicate to our partnership with the Catalog for Philanthropy. So anybody who wants to talk on a more of a one-to-one basis, we're always happy to brainstorm, and that's why we're here. So send us an email or follow us on social media, and we'll get in touch.
Yes, it's at 11:30. Sorry.
11:30. Yeah, perfect. So I'll stop my share. I'm looking at the chat. So one question, do you do these games at boards? Yes, absolutely. I think all of the above. The main goal, I think, in bringing in a board as sort of a volunteer entity is just making sure that you've got some pretty clear outcomes of what you want to get away from it. If that's a learning outcome, so how can you build better communication within the board and sort of thinking more on that services side of what we do, we can play those types of games. If we're thinking more just building relationships, having fun, doing team bonding, those are wheelhouse things that we can set up pretty quickly. Just want to make sure we know who's in the room and how many, so we can make sure it's successful. And we certainly don't have to be in the room either. We can just help plan it if you feel confident about executing. So we're always happy to give you a break from presenting on Zoom, but we're kind of flexible for that. I see another question wondering if trivia games you guys did were general knowledge. So we've done trivia games sort of all over the place. So later this week, it's got more of an environmental theme just because of our topic for Play Week. But we think it's fun to come up with trivia questions that are specific to either a talent that somebody has in the room. So if you think about like talent shows as a way to promote people on your team and kind of get people to show off a hobby that they really enjoy or something like that, you could do a trivia based around a specific topic. We think that those are kind of fun, but you can also make it mission specific. You know, you can make it tied to the work that you do. So answer yes to the questions, but we also do some specific things as well. Any other questions? Come off mute or type in the chat, whatever is more comfortable.
And just a note, later this week, it'll be a focus on environmental, and then there's an option for DC trivia as well.
Thanks, Roddy. If there aren't any other questions, hopefully you had fun. Hopefully a different kind of break from the day. I know there's a lot happening at any one time, so we really appreciate you taking an hour with us and having some fun and taking a step back. That's, I think, the big takeaway for us and delivering anything and celebrating this sort of power of play is that just make sure that it's intentional. Don't just kind of do it to do it, right? Really put an effort into taking that time and really setting space to play, because there's a lot to learn from it. And everyone, it hopefully is an accessible space that everyone can be a part of. That's what I think we do really well as kids and less so as adults. So just make sure you can bring out your inner kid.